Right, I think we'll make a start, everybody. It's great to have so many people joining us. I'll keep admitting people in, but I will hand to Adrian. Do you want me to put the agenda up, Adrian, or do you want me to stop sharing?
No, that's fine to start with. You can move it forward as appropriate. So, well, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for the November session of the Carers Space Knots. My name's Adrian. I'm a member of the steering group for the Carers Space. And today's session is going to focus on the new carers services in Nottinghamshire and what they can offer. We have a number of speakers. Dan Godley from Notts County Council will introduce the new carers services and how they can link to the carers strategy. Naomi is replacing Roz, who is going to tell us about the Carers Hub. Becca Robbins will tell us about the Young Carers Knots, and Helen Yates will tell us about support offered by Nottingham Carers Association. Before we get started, if I could ask everyone to please mute their microphones during the talks. The session will be recorded and it will be available on our website for those who can't be with us today. If you could make a note of any questions you have or drop them in the chat, James and Helen will follow up the speakers with a question and answer session, an update on co-production opportunities and getting in touch. If there are any questions that we don't get a chance to go through this afternoon, or we're not sure of the answer, we will do our best to find the answers and get them sent out via the mailing list or put on our website. If you think of something after the meeting, you're also welcome to contact us via the email and we'll look to getting an answer to you. And so to start, I'd like to hand over to Dan and the new carer services.
Thank you, Adrian. Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Carers' Rights Day today. As you're probably aware, some of us have been busy today with promoting Carers' Rights Day today. So, so thank you everyone for joining us. As Adrian said, I'm going to give you an overview of the carer strategy and the new carer support services that's been commissioned as a result of the strategy work. So I'm just going to share my screen and hopefully you will see the presentation.
No, don't watch it up. I'm in a meeting.
Okay, can everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay. So the new joint carer strategy. So this has been a piece of work that's been fully co-produced with carers of lived experience, as well as commissioners from the county and city councils, as well as the ICB, the Integrated Care Board, which was formerly the Clinical Commissioning Group. So the primary care, the NHS that oversees the primary care services within Nottingham City and Nottinghamshire. So so the joint strategy is, as I said, it's joint across all those organisations. So this isn't a county council strategy or a city council strategy. This is an ICS strategy. So we've had a number of carers with lived experience that helped to co-produce the strategy. It's took us nearly 3 years to get to this point, and this was fully approved back in the spring of this year. So as part of, now we've got the strategy here, we have a number of things to do in terms of that implementation, so that there's quite a lot of work that's going to be undertaken over the lifetime of the strategy, which you can see there is over 5 years. if you haven't had the opportunity or not seen the strategy before, then we will share a link for you to be able to look at that. So, as I've mentioned, it is an all-age strategy. It's a joint strategy across the whole of Nottinghamshire. This is the first graphic, which I call the 12-legged spider, which 12-legged spiders don't exist because obviously they only have 8 legs. But as you can see there, it's a very broad range. Carers across so many different different circumstances, different health conditions, different ages, and actually there are more legs to put on that spider as well. And I think just to highlight just a couple of those, that actually something that came out of the co-production work is parent and family carers. So these are supporting. This is about supporting parent carers of disabled children, because there was a gap there in terms of actually support as a carer. So that's one of the things that we will be looking at. But obviously the all-age strategy looks at young carers, looks at working carers, young adult carers, as well as, you know, the carers that we the greater number of carers which tends to fit into sort of late working age and age carers. So in terms of just a little bit of background information in terms of numbers of carers in Nottinghamshire and Nottingham City. So as of the last census, which was obviously only 2 years ago, in the county there was just over 82,000 unpaid carers. In the city, there's just over 24,000. So those figures have actually reduced a little bit since the 2011 census. However, what we have seen is an increase in the number of hours that carers are providing, and that support. So there's more intensive support that's been provided. So although there's in total less carers, but those who are caring are providing more support. In terms of the splits, I suppose it's no real surprise that you can see there that virtually the same, 70% female, 30% male in Nottinghamshire, 65 and 35 in Nottingham City. And just as that bottom statistic there, which reflects the demographics differences between the city and county. So 38.5% were age 65 plus in the county, but only 26.6% were within the city. So I think that just highlights the difference in the demographics between the city and the county. So in terms of young carers, the 2021 census tells us that there are 1,735 in the county and 695 in the city. That perhaps doesn't seem a lot, but actually that is quite a significant number, and obviously, you know, those young carers need that support, and we need to identify young carers and support young carers at that earliest opportunity. And only last week a report was released by the all-party parliamentary group and Carers Trust, which highlighted some of the statistics there in terms of 27 missed school days a year on average, less likely to be employed by their peers than their peers without caring responsibility, higher prevalence of self-harm, and as a result of this, there's a call on the government for a national carer strategy again. So it just there's more evidence there to say we need this national strategy. I believe now the actual report is now available. It wasn't available last week. It was just a sort of summary. So that we can share a link to that if people are interested to see more information. So in terms of the strategy vision, so on the left there is the vision that was put together and co-produced by carers. So these are the words of the carers in terms of what their vision is with the new strategy and how we support carers across the whole ICS system going forward. So I think just to pick out some of the highlights of that is that carers are really keen that we're working true active partnership together. So all our health and social care systems and services and teams work across the whole working together across the whole ICS in that active partnership with carers and families and their families to enable them to achieve healthy, balanced lives, give them the confidence that will be supported in a fair, respected and honest way by all those agencies and services they come in contact with. So so that's the vision that's been that was put together by the carers. And in terms of the strategy, as I've mentioned, fully co-produced with carers of lived experience, supported by Helen and her team within the Engagement and Promotion Service at Notts Carers Association. And just a bit of an overview there of some of the things that the carers were involved with in that process of producing the strategy. The particular thing here on here is around the creation of the I and we statements, and this is around what good looks like. So some of you may have heard of the think local, act personal approach to finding out what good looks like, and this is the approach that's been used for creating the strategy. So that is the real voice of carers within the strategy, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little while. Equally as important, there's been the co-design of the service specifications of the new carers support services. So all those the carers that were involved with the co-production of the strategy also co-produced, co-designed the specifications for the new carers services. So they commenced on the 1st of October this year. They were also involved with the tender questions and evaluating that particular question that the carers were felt important. So the next slide here is around the principles of the new strategy, and these are summarised a little bit longer than in the actual strategy document, but I think you know that the 7 listed there, they really are strong in terms of ensuring that carers have a voice and that they are listened to, that we have everyone working together and everyone thinking carer. Identifying carers as soon as possible and supporting those carers as soon as possible, and providing the right support, and again making those best uses of joint resources across the system was real key, because we'd got a lot of things that we can put together, and that was the whole thing around not just about the joint strategy but about the joint contracting and commissioning of the carer support services, as well as the wider implementation of the strategy going forward. So within the strategy, which helped informed the strategy, is the 5 key themes, and these 5 key themes have actually been identified from lots of pre-engagement with carers, not just locally but regionally and nationally as well. So outcomes of and feedback from various surveys, engagement events. A lot of activity was happening over COVID, and I'm sure some of you may have been participated in and responded to some of those things that's been around. But as you can see there, there's 5 key themes that came out of that, and I'm sure if you can see those clearly on your screen, some of those won't be of any surprise to you, but I think it just then further evidences that these things are still really prevalent for carers and what carers are facing on a daily basis. So again, I think just to pick up a couple out of that 5, you know, how important it is for carers to access short breaks, being listened to and being able to access good communication and information, that came out really strong again last week at an event where we launched a strategy with key people from the ICS, from across the ICS, as well as a number of unpaid carers. That really came out from the carers that were attending, so still an issue. And also that access to the right support for the person they're caring for, and information and advice and guidance for carers as well. So those 5 key themes are some of what we need to focus on, and things we need to make better for carers. The next graphic here, I call this the blockbuster graphic. So those of you old enough to remember blockbusters, this is my favourite graphic out of the whole strategy. But this is where we've got the key components, so the 10 key components that have been identified in terms of what's important for carers and what good looks like for carers under each of those. So this is where we've got the voice of carers under each of these 10 key components, and where the I and we statements have been co-produced. Each of those have also got a vision as well. So on the next slide, I will show you here in terms of one of those key components. So I've just picked out an example, which I actually used in a presentation yesterday around safeguarding carers, around health and well-being and living a balanced life. So as you can see, there is a vision there whereby carers should have their well-being prioritised as well as that of their cared for. Carers should be able to access respite and support so they can look after their own health and well-being needs, access relevant support easily, and take breaks. So the I statements that the carers have put together are: I want to be able to feel safe and supported in my caring role, as well as knowing the person I'm caring for is also safe and well looked after. I want to be seen as more than a carer and have opportunities to live a balanced life outside my caring role. So this is what carers are told what good looks like for this particular key component. So the we statements on the right there are the overarching we, as in the commissioners and the wider ICS, in terms of this is what we will do in terms of ensuring that we will meet those I statements and what good looks like. So the next stage of that is actually what is the detail around that, how are we going to do that, and when we're going to do that. So so each of those we statements will be looked at by each member of the ICS in terms of actually what do we need to do. This is what we've said we're going to do. What does that mean for our particular service or particular team where we're interacting with them and supporting carers? So obviously one of the key elements of implementing the strategy is the new carer support services. So we needed to do that anyway because we were due, our contracts were due to expire. So it was the right opportunity for us to join forces with the city with some of those services that's listed there. So we've got the carer subservice, which is, as you're aware, has been around for a number of years. I think it's about 8 to 9 years now, which is obviously a statutory duty that we have to provide in information, advice and support and guidance for carers service. But what's been co-produced in terms of that service and that specification is actually, it's not just around, yes, okay, we do need that information, advice, guidance service, but actually what else do we need extra that to meet carers' needs better? So Naomi will talk a little bit more in more detail what the new Carers Hub, which is now provided by the Carers Federation, or what services and support they are offering. But as you can see there, there is that need for connecting carers to support rather than signposting. There is that undertaking of carers assessments and assessing their needs as a carer. That is currently statutory for the city. So the city have actually given that responsibility to the Carers Hub as per the previous contract as well. But this is something that we will be developing with the Carers Federation through the life of the contract. The provision of carer support groups, which again was something that was done in previous Carers Hub services, more one-to-one support. For the first time, or certainly for the county, this GP practice support. So supporting GP practices and carer champions within GP practices around promoting carers and identifying carers at that earliest opportunity. Co-production of support groups. So this is around, creating groups that are peer-led, and other services as and when during that life of that contract, again with that co-production approach with carers. So that is a 5-year contract, and that, as I say, that is joint with city and county. The Young Carers Service is again a service that we had previously, and as with the city, but again this is one provider across the city and county, which is provided by Tuvida. So we've got Becca here that's been able to tell you a little bit more about the Young Carers Service. So that includes peer support groups and activities, one-to-one support, and support for schools in identifying and supporting young carers. So that's one element of a new element of that service that wasn't done in that service previously. So that will enable more young carers to be supported and identified across the city and county. The Carers Engagement Service is, well, actually, it's the Carers Engagement and Promotion Service, which Helen is here. So Helen and James from Nottinghamshire Carers Association provide that service, which enables promotion and engagement of carers and the co-production element as well. So as part of that contract, this is Carer Space is something that that they are commissioned to deliver through that service. So that is currently just county only. So we've obviously continued to fund that, whereas city haven't as yet, but there is that opportunity if they do want to join that at a later stage. The final one on the bottom there is Carers Respite. So this is about more of a bespoke service around offering carers respite within the community. Currently city are going out to tender for that, and this is something that we haven't joined yet because we're still reviewing our respite and short breaks offer for carers. We may join that contract a little bit later on, but we do need to develop that a little bit more. But the model of the city that the city are wanting to commission is more of a flexible approach to breaks, and actually have a more creative use of that time, and also using a carer's personal budget when they've got that time off to do something around supporting their well-being. So a little bit more detail around the new carer support services. So again, this theme of partnership working and best use of resources with those joint contracts. As I've mentioned, we've got the service specifications co-designed and co-produced by carers, and likewise with the tender documentation as well. But it does have that very clear ethos and of the delivery of the strategy contained within those service specifications. So each of the 10 key components and the IWE statements are part of that contract document. There are a number of key performance indicators, or KPIs as we tend to abbreviate them to, that are in place to monitor and evidence the delivery of service and the quality of those services as well. And in terms of that review of the contract and contract monitoring, it is intended that carers will be involved in those processes. So again, it's taking it through from, you know, the ethos of the strategy and the co-production of the strategy all the way through to service delivery and contract monitoring. So we're not quite sure, we haven't quite developed what that might look like yet with carers, but that is something that that will be happening during the life of the contracts. There is that requirement, as I mentioned earlier, of co-producing support groups and other services and activities with carers. So again, that theme of co-producing services and support, in addition to what's we've already specified, but actually it's supporting those, you know, small groups of carers that might want to get together, and supporting that process where, as and when is needed. One of the key things is, this is really important, is that the hub and the young carer services as well, but certainly the hub has that very strong local presence in local communities. So that is working closely with the GP practices, the primary care networks, and the voluntary sector and other partners, so that in each of those local communities, everybody knows about the Carers Hub, what they provide, and they support carers, but also the Carers Hub knowing in that local area what support that they can connect carers to. As I've mentioned, connecting carers to support. So I've put there not signposting, but we're trying to move away from that terminology, because signposting is usually, you know, we'll give you a telephone number, we'll give you a leaflet, we'll give you an email address. Actually, it's more of the support around, I'll make that phone call for you, I'll make that referral for you, I will take you, if you want me to a support group. You know, we can take some of that burden away from you if you don't feel comfortable, or you may not even have time to do those things. We can do that on your behalf, and we will support you with through that. So it's a little bit of like hand holding in many circumstances. As I've mentioned, there's that assessing of carers' needs. So currently statutory for the city, and that will be something we'll be developing in the county, hopefully with an online self-referral as well. So that is something that we're looking into with some of the digital solutions. Okay, any questions? That was supposed to be quite short, but it was probably a little bit longer than originally planned. So if you've got any questions of what we've heard. And sorry, I can't really see the screen too well, so I don't know. Am I better to take this, stop sharing, Helen?
Yeah, if you stop sharing, Dan, I think we will, if people are okay, we'll come back to questions.
Okay,
so
yeah.
Get the Carers Hub to come on and tell us a bit more about their service just for next, if that's all right. Is Naomi still with us?
Hi, yeah.
Hi, Naomi.
Yeah, I am. Hiya.
Right.
I'll see if I can. I'm not used to Zoom, so I'm going to try and share my screen.
Okay.
There we go. Has that come up?
Yes, it has, Naomi. Thank you.
Lovely. First of all, apologies from Ros, the carers lead, the manager. She had to step out at the last minute, and apologies from me because I've been pulled in at the last minute. So bear with me if I'm a little bit kind of unprepared. But basically, yeah, I'm here to kind of tell you a little bit about how the Carers Hub service is kind of hoping to deliver on those carer strategy outcomes. There we go. Okay. Can we see that? Sorry, I don't know why it always cuts off, doesn't it? Sorry about the highlighting. I don't know why that wouldn't come off either. So basically, yeah, we are aiming to deliver a bespoke service to unpaid carers in the city and across Nottinghamshire, in line with that kind of tailored approach to every carer's kind of individual needs. We will kind of do our own assessment with a carer on what they individually need and what they're trying to prioritise. And as was said before, we are kind of delivering, we are responsible for delivering the statutory assessments for the city. We have the telephone helpline, we have an online chat function, and obviously emails, contact, and we can also offer face-to-face support, including home visits. And potentially that's really important, especially around those first contacts where, you know, we're asking a few questions and they're a bit personal, and it's not always the easiest thing to do over the phone when you don't know who you're speaking to, really. We've maintained the carers groups across the city and the county that were being delivered previously by Tuvida, and they are obviously really, really beneficial to the carers. They're really, we've had that as a priority to maintain those groups, even while we've been in this startup time when it's been a bit kind of difficult to get hold of individual carers, and we've been trying to find our feet. But the groups have gone ahead. Very well attended, and lots of interesting kind of speakers coming in. I think that ties in again with what Dan was saying about kind of those local links. We kind of have support workers in delivering those groups who do have an understanding of what's available in the areas, and we try and get guest speakers in who can kind of be specific in the information they're giving, which is relevant to the areas we're delivering in. And yet we're building those links. I mean, we've had some staff obviously come over from Tuvida who already have those well-established links in the community services and organisations. We have some that are relevant that we've developed over our years with carer service delivery, but we are obviously building that up even further to make sure we have got those opportunities available. And connecting with those services, making referrals and supporting carers. I think again that really important kind of reference to connecting carers to support and not just signposting. I think we take that kind of very much on board, how important and helpful that can be, just to make that call on people's behalf, or kind of helping them to access whatever it is they're looking for. And supporting the respite provision so that the cared for kind of has some support, and also that the carer can have that break away from caring. Oh, is it going? Why is that not going? Hold on. Oh, there we go. I'll do it that way. So we have kind of obviously lots of information, advice and support around kind of specific conditions and caring roles, lots of links, building those links to kind of other services that we can support carers into and get advice from, and providing relevant training to carers to support their caring role. We are looking very much at kind of future and emergency planning to make sure that they do have that sense of, you know, the cared for will be safe, will be looked after if there is an emergency. And supporting carers after their caring role has ended or changed, with the cared for going into a care home or nursing home, things like that. Again, we know that the impact on that on carers is huge, so they need the support going forward with that. Advocating for carers who don't have a voice, again, you know, that I think that links into that connecting carers with support, being able to speak for them, being able to kind of explain things for them in ways that maybe they would struggle with. We have training again on offer for carers. We can link them into external trainings, but we also at the Carers Federation have our own kind of VLE, and we'll be delivering also face-to-face trainings hopefully going forward. At the moment, we've specifically got kind of safeguarding training packages for carers and level 3 advocacy courses, but we'll be looking at developing additional training as we find out what carers are interested in, really, and what they want us to deliver for them. The last one is really kind of a development point, I guess. We're obviously currently just kind of getting everything in place, making those contacts with carers, trying to kind of make sure we have kind of caught everybody who's been passed over or who is kind of linking in with the change of service. But we will in the future kind of new year be looking at developing things like the young adult carers, that transition from the young carer services, working together hopefully with Subida around that. And also really focusing, I think there were referenced there in your 12-legged spider, Dan, you know, the working carers and the parent carers. We had conversations already about, you know, they do feel a little excluded with office hour support. So we will be building up again the virtual kind of group options for working carers and parent carers out of hours, and also out of hours kind of helpline to make sure that they are kind of being able to access the support that they need as well. This is basically just our information, obviously, all of our contacts. We've got the helpline there at the top. Email, we have WhatsApp and text as well, which I hadn't mentioned. The chat box, that's our website one, and just our general information there. So that's the end of what I've got to say. Has anyone got any questions for me immediately?
Perhaps there is one that was in the chat which is worth covering. Parent carers short breaks do a very thorough assessment. Can this somehow be combined with carers assessments so that carers don't have to have the assessment twice?
Sorry, Adrian, I missed the first bit of that.
Sorry, parent carers short breaks do a very thorough assessment. Can this somehow be combined with the carers assessment? I believe that's from the County Council of the Social Workers, so that the carers don't have to be assessed twice. I don't know whether you're the right one to answer that or anybody else.
That might be a Dan question.
I think so, yes, thank you.
Okay. This is something where carers have told us that, you know, they don't like to keep repeating their story. So where we've already told us about their particular situation, that we're not asking those same questions and going through that same thing again. When we move towards that whole family approach, there will be a more holistic approach to the assessment of the person and also the carer and the wider family. At the moment, we've still got two separate assessment processes. So we've got, you know, the assessment for the cared for, then the assessment for the carer. Now, I think from what you're saying, Gemma, if this is a transition from, you know, parent carer of a child into adulthood, it's how we can use that. Is that what you were saying, Gemma? Sorry if not quite understood. You know, that was my interpretation. But if that's the case, that is something that we probably need to look at if that is an issue, because the two systems are two mosaic systems. So we've got children's and adults are two separate systems. So it's how we can enable that to happen. Okay, so it's just a transition. Sorry, no transition. Just saying.
No.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, so that is something that we can look at and develop if so that you're not repeating those stories, and when we move towards that whole family approach, certainly in adults where we're having those conversations with carers, we were just updating the workflow whereby from that initial conversation, that initial contact, the next stages of the process up to the full assessment, the full carers assessment, it just brings through that details of that previous conversation. So again, it doesn't, we're not then having to go back and ask, you know, the carer the questions that may have already been asked at the beginning of the process. So to make that more streamlined, but also to meet that requirement of carers saying we don't want to keep telling our story. So we've not we're still working with our children's services. So that's something we've got to develop in terms of actually what's this going to look like going forward. So it works in the pipeline, basically, is what I'm saying.
Gemma's just followed that up with, if caring for multiple children, is it just one carer's assessment? That is...
Well, currently in the assessment in children's is different. Children's parent carers is different to adults. So we're trying to get towards a common approach to that assessment document. But certainly the adults assessment is that that can support a number of people. You know, if you're caring for just one person or a number of people, that is part of that is encompassed as part of that that one assessment. So it's the impact of their role as a carer. So that's certainly what happens in adults. So yeah, we want to try and get a similar approach.
Right, well, thank you very
Thank
much then, Dan, for that. And I'll pass over to now to Becca for...
I think Andrew, I think there's an Andrew's got a physical hand up. Is that right?
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I'm Andrew. My
Sorry,
wife's here as well. So just a quick introduction. I'm a carer for an adult son who goes to daycare services, but so I work full time. My wife works as well at lunchtime. And on top of everything, I've got Emmy as well. So you can imagine things are can be quite entertaining.
Sure.
I just want to pick up on a couple of points, really. I welcome what you said, Dan, earlier on about providing I think you called it the hand-holding element in terms of helping sort out appointments and things, because often I think finding out information about services and getting access to that services still feels very, very difficult for us. And actually, almost sounds awful having the time. Everyone's got a million and one things to do. But as an example, when I start work about 7:45, when I come home, I'm doing the carer role of being the dad.
Sure.
Then by the carers come, and then you have your tea, and then you've got about an hour and a half before you go to bed. At which point you actually want a bit of time with, in my case, with my wife or whatever, or just crashing out. Therefore actually having that time and energy to find out all about all the support. You're almost sitting there thinking, oh blimey, I want to try and find out about something, but I'm out of juice today. I wish someone else could help me. You know, I mean, in our case, our son's nearly 24, so it's in terms of what his requirements are and everything else. I appreciate this is a very personal thing, but it's sharing a personal story with you. So
sure.
Yeah, anything that can be done to help folk like ourselves, who are the working carers, if you like, who sometimes it still feels like we feel a bit forgotten about sometimes and everything. Any help that can be given from both yourselves and obviously what colleagues have just said as well would be really welcome and supported.
Yeah, sure. And that you know, and thank you for sharing your own story and your own circumstances. But this is similar to some of the feedback and listening to some of the carers at the strategy event that we had last week. That carers are saying we just we don't know where to get the information from, and two, sometimes when we get it, we don't. Sometimes it's a bit overwhelming. And they're struggling to know what to do next. So this is why we've got it in the hub contract that the support is that hand holding, as I described earlier, is, well, actually we'll make that phone call, we'll make that referral, or even we'll explain what this information means, what might be best to support you, in those circumstances. So and that as I say, that came across really strong, and we've got quite a bit of work to do, and I say we, the whole system, in terms of how we best promote carers services and communicate what's available. There is a carers information booklet in the county at the moment, but a new one's being co-produced to include city information as well. But it's ensuring that people have that all our services and all the teams have a copy of that booklet to give out to carers, and actually everyone, you know, wherever you are making contact, is ensuring, you know, is that think carer, and ensuring that, you know, they're having those right conversations and they're able to give you the information that you really need. And that's going to take a bit of time to get that all the way through, but all the way through the, you know, the ICS and all the different services. However, the senior managers of across the ICS who came to last week's event were hearing that loud and clear, and they're starting to think, what do we need to do to improve this, improve this experience for carers across the board. So yeah, some of it will be, you know, things may happen quite quickly, some things will take a little bit more time, but certainly with the hub, that is what they're there to help you with if you need that support.
Naomi, not to put you on the spot, but is there anything in the pipeline specifically for working carers?
Yeah, I mean, we have got we have got a Zoom group for working carers, an evening group, and one for parent carers. And one of the priorities is obviously then moving forward, looking at the out of hours telephone support helpline availability. And I think, you know, it is again coming back to what was said. It's not just about having the time to look into where to get all these support and things, is it, Andrew? It's also, if you are working, when you've got the time to actually call that service, because they're closed when you're there in the evening. So yeah, I think we are very conscious, and I think because we had the emails through about the carer strategy, we had a lot saying love to come but can't because I'm working. It's always like this, and we have really taken that on board as well. So yeah, we're moving that forward as fast as we can.
Great, thank you.
Right, well, thank you, Naomi, and thanks, Becca, for your patience, and we'll pass you over now for your discussion on young carer matters.
Thank you. I'll see if I can get this to work. You never know. Oh, can people see that?
Yes.
Fabulous. Okay. Okay, so I'm Becca. I think I know quite a few people on the call, so hello. I'm the service manager for Young Carers Knots. Apologies, some of this presentation has been used elsewhere, so I apologise if some of it might not be quite relevant, but I have put a slide in about various things to do with what's going to be slightly different with services going forward. So yeah, it's thought that 1 in every 10 children has a caring role for a family member. So that's, we think about 3 in every classroom, which is, I thought that figure was quite astounding, really. Yes, so certainly brings it home a little bit. So yeah, you're aware that in a young carer aged between 5 and 17, helping with things like cooking, cleaning, shopping, fetching meds, taking younger siblings to school, can include anything with equipment, mobility, certainly some elements of personal care at times, as well as emotional support, and sometimes being responsible for elements of a household. So we aim to support with things like peer support, including youth groups and outings. We have a My Life Now assessment, which we aim to have every young carer who comes to us. We aim to do that with them to kind of gauge where they're at the moment and to see what support we can put in place. To look at any onward referrals and signposting for young people, we're going to be making those referrals for them and talking parents through some of that. Certainly things like BU Knots, counselling, referral, things like that. We're going to have conversations with family before we do that, but also chase up and make sure that that's in place. Looking at personalised one-to-one support and guidance, communication within schools and GPs. And I'm sorry, Helen, I'm probably going to step on some of your toes during some of this. I do apologise. Looking at residential trips, and planning for further education and employment with the older young adults. this is looks quite complicated. I apologise. I quite like it. And this is the My Life Now assessment that we use. And we have got a simplified version for younger children, because obviously this for a 5-year-old would be mind-boggling, I'm sure. So yeah, it just gives us a bit of a prompt to see what issues, what's going really well at the minute, what perhaps is worrying a young person, and from there we can then build that conversation into, okay, issues around school, for example, what can we do to make that any better? Can we talk to the teacher about things? Can we look at ways to make that a bit easier? Things like how are things at home? Is there any way we can make a referral to the hub, for example, for any older or adult carers within the home? Certainly looking at who's looking after them as a young person. Is there anybody looking after them, or are they the main carer in that house? And trying to gauge where they're at. I will just mention on assessments, we cover the statutory assessment for city young carers at the moment. But every young carer will get the My Life Now assessment, which is more of our informal chat, if you like. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on, and I won't linger on it at all, Helen, I promise, for the Nottinghamshire Carers Association, they are doing training and delivering information for schools and working with GPs, wider community, and trying to drum up some support for our young carers within schools. They will train staff, do assemblies, yeah, all that lovely stuff. Also helping us with some of our co-production with young carers to help identify what services they would like and how best to implement any changes. Just a few quotes for some of our young carers we've had recently. Certainly a lot of the feedback we've had from our young people at the minute has been around schools, I will be honest. I get that. I think young people spend so long at school, it's probably the bit that gets spoken about a bit more, but I think the one that hit home was last year, kids who had good attendance got to go to Willgate. I'm never going to get there because I keep getting a late mark, and that's because they drop a younger sibling off at school, and that school starts slightly later than theirs, so they're always going to be late because they're always dropping their brother off, and it's just not fair. And I think it really hit home that actually that poor young person is doing so much outside school. They should be given more opportunities to do stuff like Willgate, not less. So photos, I'm a big fan, so I thought I'd spam you all with some of our most recent stuff we've had going on. We've had a farm visit, Halloween party was our last big one, but we've had farm visits, we've had archery, rock climbing, paintballing. It was a little while ago now. So yeah, just a mixture. If we can do it and it's something that young people want to do, we'll try our best to make it happen. And I did put this slide in just to talk about how we're hoping to be different. Okay, so simply put, I think more time and resources. Every area is going to have a named support worker who'll be able to focus on that area. One-to-one support is a big focus for the team, meeting with each child to complete an informal assessment to gauge what support is needed. And certainly with some of our young carers at the moment, we're going to households where there are multiple young carers. I think one of my colleagues went into a home last week where there are 7 young carers within that home. But it's finding ways to have that one-to-one conversation so that the support we put in place for that particular young person within that household is individualised to them. And then we're going to review that regularly. And within that, we're going to be looking at if there are any onward referrals we need to make, liaising with schools, talking to GPs, obviously with consent. We are going to be engaging with schools to help focus their responsibility of any young carers that they have. At the moment, we're in the process of putting youth groups together in all areas of county and city, and then we're hoping this will give young carers a regular place to meet, to get support and have fun. We will be ramping up our trips and experiences for young carers during school holidays. This is including residential trips. I think at the moment we have for next year got 4 residential trips planned, which is really exciting. Not that I necessarily want to go camping, but it has been mentioned. We shall see how that goes. We're going to be working with our older young carers who'll be looking at different life skills and further education or employment opportunities. We're going to be working with Carers Fed to bridge that gap between the 16 to 25-year-olds. And certainly at the minute we're working with Dan Cop to hopefully put something in place for education, looking at further education and how best we can let not only young carers but their parents perhaps make them aware of what other options there are other than you know, a young person saying I can't because of my caring role. They're looking more at what ways could they, you know, whether it's at home learning or whether it's distance learning, that kind of thing. And we're also going to be doing co-production, working with young carers to give them a voice on what they would like their service to look like, and ensure that they get the best out of it. And that's me. Yeah, our details, we've got a website at the top, and we've got an email. The QR code there is to our referral form. We're finding it, people are really appreciating the online form much easier than perhaps it has been previously. And that's me. Whistle stop tour. Any questions? Big sigh of relief. There we go. I'm really sorry, Adrian. I think you've on mute.
Sorry. Apologies about that. I thought I'd unmuted it. There was one question in the chat. Dealing with different care organisations seems overly complicated for me. It's just more bureaucracy as far as I can see for carers. I wouldn't worry about joining up with the city with particular reference to the financial situation. And that was from Diane. So I think that was perhaps more a statement than a question. So
I do think a point to make, Diane, hopefully to reassure, is the carers hub is still the front door, and if you contact any carer or any professional contacts the carers hub, they will direct you to the right place if they are not the right place, but they should be able to connect you. That's right, Dan, isn't it? That's the plan. Yeah. So that is still the front way to get into anything to carers.
Absolutely. And obviously the carers hub will make a referral to the relevant local authority if there's more support that's needed that they can't provide. So I mean, yes, we still wanted to have a carers hub and a young carers service. We wanted to have those as 2 separate services. But in essence, if you're a carer, even if you're a young carer, you know, you can go to the hub, they will give you support and they will connect you to other support where it's needed. So they have that skills and that responsibility to do that. I think we've actually made some great progress in that joint working, because each of those contracts was separate. So we had a county contract for the hub and young carers, and obviously city had the same. And yes, you know, the city's financial circumstances aren't in a great shape, as many people know. However, the funding is secured for those services. So it is these services are funded through the Better Care Fund. So it's not totally from the local authority. So it is funding that's allocated to each local authority that comes out of. So those services should be safe.
Right, well, thanks for that then, Dan, and thanks, Becca, for that talk. I'll pass over now to Helen Yates and bring her in to talk about Nottinghamshire Carers Association.
Lovely, thanks, Adrian. Okay, I'll pop mine on. Right, so Nottinghamshire Carers Association, we are sort of across the middle of what's going on with the other two carers services. So we are involved in engagement and promotion of carers, who carers are, and what other organisations should be doing for carers. In other words, it's making carers everybody's business, regardless of what sector, what field that they're working in. So we can offer various different elements to our work. So one is our carer friendly quality marks and support for carers champions. So what we look to do is to speak to employers, community facing organisations, education professionals, as Becca was saying, we do a lot of work in schools, and with health and social care professionals around children and families, particularly for young carers, but with the employers and community for adult carers also. And we look to make sure that different organisations have a carers champion. So that would be somebody in their organisation that has received some training around raising awareness of carers, identifying carers, and what support is available to carers, so that carers champion in that organisation can provide some support, some information, some guidance to any carers that they encounter. It's all free of charge, so there's a variety of different options for training. There's loads of resources available, and organisations can then work towards having their carers champion in place, putting in place some support for any carers that they encounter, and that can lead to them receiving a quality mark. So if you see anywhere carer friendly quality marks around organisations or in employers that have our logo, the NCA badge on them, that's what it is. That's what it means. It means that somebody in that organisation has been trained, and that organisation are thinking about carers, actively doing something to make life easier for carers. That's what that means. You can find out more on our website, and there's some case studies and information on there as well. And anyone can get in touch and ask for some awareness raising training, and we will do our best to get you onto a session or to plan a session just for yourselves. We also do a lot of work around co-production. So as Becca mentioned, that's going to be involving with young carers through our partnership over there with Tuvida. But we also do a lot of work with the adult carers, particularly in the county, around co-production. We supported the carers who were involved in writing the carers strategy. We've currently been asked to support with carers in a few other projects that I'm going to share with you later as co-production opportunities for some of you on the call today as well. And we're really keen to hear those voices of carers. Part of that involves going out to carers groups, talking to carers, listening to their views. Part of it involves carers speaking to us. If you want to tell us something, tell us a story, tell us your experiences, then we would like to listen, because one of the things that we're very able to do then is to connect with people like Dan and talk about the issues that carers are facing and start to try and piece together anything that might be able to happen to make that easier or make that difference. We also run the Carers Space NOTS network that you're on this afternoon. It's a network that is open to professionals and carers. The aim is to bring professionals and carers together, mutually benefit from shared knowledge and experiences, and to get carers to have a real say in how services are designed as equal partners. That group is run by a group of carers and professionals, so it is fully co-produced. So everything that's happening this afternoon has been planned by carers as well as by professionals. It's not all just taken on and done by us. We listen to the carers on our steering group. We listen to the views of the carers who are signed up to the network to say what it is you want to know more about, what it is you want to get involved in. But we need your voices to make it work. So if anyone wants to get more involved in Carers Space, we welcome people to join that planning group, but we also welcome you to tell us what you want Carers Space to do for you, because it is about you leading us rather than the other way around. And that's what NCA are all about in a nutshell. So I will take that down and we are opening the floor for questions for any and all of us. I've just noticed Sarah's on the call from Active Knots, and It's saying to link up with Becca. We can certainly link you up with Becca, Sarah, because Sarah's done some brilliant work with Andy, our schools worker up in Bassetlaw, and we're growing it. So it'd be really great to see how we can connect it in for some more of the young carers as well. Any questions from anybody? To any of the speakers, anything that you've heard so far today? Okay, as Adrian said at the beginning, if you do come up with anything that you'd like to know more about or questions that you want to raise, you can get in touch with us, and James will go through how to do that just before we finish the session this afternoon. So I'm going to carry on and I'm going to talk to you a bit more about co-production, which is one of the key reasons that we're here for Carers Space. It's one of the key points that we want to raise and things that we want to promote opportunities for. So just a bit of an update for you. At the moment, there are some co-production opportunities available for carers to get involved in. One is the Nottinghamshire Carers Association steering group. So we are looking for carers to meet once a quarter with us so that we can talk to you about the work we've been doing at Nottinghamshire Carers, and you can feed into what you think that work should look like and the direction for our services moving forwards. What you think is working well, what you think could be working better, what you think those community organisations, employers need to know. And we need the voice of carers capturing in that. So that's one thing that you might be interested in getting involved in, and that would be one online meeting every quarter in terms of a commitment. The second one is with Nottinghamshire County Council. They are looking at creating better digital support for carers, and they're doing that with a outside consultancy company called Channel 3 Consulting. And they are looking to understand what carers want from digital support. And they're going to be setting up a series of workshops that you'll be able to get involved in. Some of those will be face-to-face, some of those will be online, and we can share more information with you about that. There will also be an opportunity to get involved and have a say around short breaks. That will be coming up as well. So as Dan's mentioned before, that's all going to be being reviewed in terms of looking at what the county's offer for short breaks is going to look like. And we'll be looking for carers to have a voice in that process as well. We're also going to be working with Trevor Clower, who some of you might know is the founder of the Carers Roadshows that have been going for many years in Notts now. And we're going to be looking for carers to come on board to help co-produce those roadshows. So to have a say in what those roadshows are going to look like moving forwards from 2024, what kind of organisations, how you want the information presented. And that will be, again, it could be face-to-face or it could be online meetings. It could even just be sending some ideas across to us, but we'd love to have your voices in that as well. And as I just said about Carers Space, we are welcoming new members to the planning group. So if there's anybody on the call today who'd like to be part of that planning group, it can be a carer or a professional who would like to come on. That is a once a month planning meeting at the moment, which is online, and then email exchanges intermittently throughout to keep things ticking over as well. So there's our email address there. Most of you on the call will have heard about Carers Space and have signed up to that email, to the email list that happens when you email that address. But you can also look on our website and there's lots more information about what we do there. We also share all the videos of all the sessions that we've had on our website, and there's quite a bank of them building up over the last year or so. So it's worth having a look to see if there's any information there that would be useful to yourself as a carer or to carers that you work with if you're a professional. And there's the Nottinghamshire County Council co-production bulletin that you can also register for, and the link is there for that as well. And we will get all of the slides and the information that's been shared today put up onto our website on Carers Space Notes, so that you'll be able to find those links and get involved. we want to hear from you. We want people with lived experience getting involved in these things so that we can get them right. So the more of you who can get involved in whatever capacity, even if it's just to tell us a story or an experience, then we do really want you to do that and to be involved with us all. I'll take that down. Are there any questions about any of that?
Within the chat, there has been, or Gemma brought up an issue of approaching the GP practice and not finding access to being registered as a carer. The receptionist didn't seem to understand the whole process. I think it's worth saying that for many years the GPs have been able to claim money for running a register of all the carers that they have there, and it's well worth becoming or getting noted as a carer, so that you then get the facilities, you can get flu jabs, you can get all of the additional support. Certainly through COVID, it was very useful to be able to get the jabs at an earlier time, because you recognise the need for that extra support. It can also, if they're aware of the person that you're caring for, they can make sure that that person perhaps gets a little bit extra time if that's necessary when they have an appointment, to make sure the appointment is effective as well. So it's well worth pushing that through, and I think there is a lot of advice out there as how you can get it. It's just being a little bit more assured when you go there that the service should be available to you, and if they're not offering that as a GP practice, I should contact the ICB, who should be able to advise you as to why that GP practice is not doing what it should be doing, and they may have a word with them.
Gemma, if it helps, if you want to drop me a message with your contact details and the name of your GP surgery, I can get in touch with the Carers Hub, and they have a worker there who is connected with the GP surgeries and their carers champions. So we should be able to put you in direct contact with your surgery's carers champion, which may help, because they will know exactly what's going on with how to register it and what to do, and what support is available to you from your surgery. So if you'd like to do that, feel free to send me a message, but I'll put my email in the chat as well, so you can do that via email if that's preferable.
Yeah, I think Andrew's added a point about the fact that a lot of GP practices don't have hoists, which are necessary if you need to actually examine somebody. And often the services should then offer a reasonable alternative, which may be visiting the home and being able to, where the home has a hoist and is able to examine the person on their own bed, if that's the only way that it can be done. So there's usually a reasonable alternative that they should be following.
Thank you for that. I think we can take that point, Andrew, because I'm sure between us we can pass that on to people over at the ICS, Dan, can't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's something that needs to be further discussed.
Yeah, and this is the whole thing around what the new strategy is there to address, is to ensure all services across the whole ICS, including GP practices and community services, etc., do think carer and actually are more carer aware, so that like those scenarios and situations that Gemma and Andrew have highlighted, that they are thinking carer and are supporting carers better, because it's in everyone's best interest, and we need to be together on this. And we know there are pockets of different services, and certainly some GP practices that don't appear to have taken on board some of the things around supporting carers as perhaps they should be, and we need to know who they are, and we need to get the ICB to sort of say, we need to change this, and we need to go through the right channels. I've certainly been going to some PCN meetings online and promoting the strategy and talking to those groups about importance of the strategy and the importance of supporting unpaid carers. So the message is getting out there, and hopefully from the session that we had last week, that senior managers are taking that back to their teams to ensure that the strategy and the ethos of the strategy and what that strategy is to deliver is taken down through all their operational services and teams, and taking on board what we've highlighted and what good looks like for carers. So yeah, so anything like that, you know, please let us know, because we will take it back, because we need to identify where this isn't working and this isn't happening, because, you know, carers are telling us they don't feel supported, you know, they're not getting the information that they need.
And that's one of the reasons that Carer Space was commissioned. It is so that you can contact, there's somewhere for you to contact and say, this is what's happening, this is what's going on, and then we endeavour to feed it to the right place to help you get that support, or to help see if it's a system-wide issue that we do need to do something bigger to address, or whether it's something we can just help you with as an individual as well. So that is one of the reasons for it. There's another question, Dan, around what does short breaks actually mean in terms of Notts County Council, because it's a term that can be used quite loosely.
So historically, we've used the term of short breaks as a service, or basically a replacement care service to enable carers to take a break. So we have dedicated short breaks units that are the 3 short breaks units across the county that's run by the county council. So one in the north, one in mid, and one in South Notts. And they are called short breaks services. So even though the service is actually provided directly to the person, it enables the carer to have a break from their caring role. So it is something that we have historically used. Interestingly, not many local authorities, or certainly where they do use the term short breaks, it's the activities that they offer to carers when they've got the time off from caring. Often it's referred to in other areas as respite services. So it is something we do want to look at in terms of that terminology. And yes, we do call it short breaks, but as part of an ongoing review around short breaks, that we do need to look at, actually, is this the best way to describe that support? Because yeah, it can be used a little bit loosely. So we do agree, Diane, that we need to perhaps look at that and actually rethink, is this the right way to describe that support?
Thanks, Dan.
I think Paul Classen, is it? Is something about digital?
Oh yeah.
So Paul, your digital inclusion team, is that Nottingham West PCN, are interested in what NCC had wished to put forward for support with the NHS app. I probably need to take that back, Paul, to the wider digital project group that we've got around linking that in to linking that into the NHS app. As Helen has mentioned, we do
before the boys got
we do have
I
don't
to
know,
hide one.
I think, thank you Karen for putting on mute. Yeah, so Channel 3, who's doing some work with us, they are, as Helen said, they're looking at specific digital solutions for supporting carers. So, and actually one of the things that came out of some of the discussions yesterday was around hospital discharges, and actually the best way of how we can inform carers of, you know, where a discharge is being planned without having those phone calls or having to go into the hospital, you know, and ensuring that the carer gets all the relevant information that they need so they can help with a safe planned discharge, and that they will be appropriately supported when they get back home, whether that's all the support they provide by the unpaid carer, or whether it's also all the care and support that might be provided, even if it's on a short-term basis as part of a reablement. And one of the things I did ask or mention yesterday is there something we can use with the NHS app that could give people that information, you know, through that NHS app. We've got the NHS app there, you know, is there a way that can be explored? So yeah, so there's lots of different things, lots of different possibilities. We're just trying to work through some of that now, and I think some of the things that's been highlighted where it would be really useful is, right, okay, where do we need to go with this? How can we take this forward? So yes, I can certainly I can give you the person who's doing the digital, leading on the wider digital project. And thanks, Paul, for giving your email address as well.
Great, thank you. So with Diane, what age group are you talking about, Dan, for short breaks? So what age group does that relate?
So these are so in terms of providing services to those 18 plus that we're reviewing and looking at. So those under 18 are still provided short breaks in children's services. But what we do need to look at is that transition of what's been provided in children's to then what's provided in adults, because we know that obviously that looks quite different, and that can be significantly different in terms of, you know, they were perhaps getting quite a lot when they're in children's services, but when they come into adults, that can tend to reduce. But it's also looking at you know, what other alternatives are available to enable carers to get that time off. So that might be better use of day services, better use of shared lives, and enabling or ensuring that our workers are having those right conversations with the person and the carer to ensure that they're both their needs are being met, and there's a you know, a range of options for them to choose from. So yeah, so we're talking in the context of adults, Diane.
Yeah, I don't know. Dan, can you hear me? Because I'm getting fed up about to do this on chat. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, loud and clear.
What I'm on about is what are these establishments you're on about in Notts? Are you on about Ollie Street and places like that?
Yeah, so we have three dedicated, as you know, Diane. We've got Holly Street, we've got Helmsley Road in Rainworth, and then we've got Win Hill down in Bingham.
So
yeah.
So they're clear then, they're for learning disability, aren't they?
They are at the moment, but that model is being looked at as we speak. So there has been some engagement events, I believe. I think there's some more that's been planned, whereby people can go into, you know, and give their views and feedback around some of the services. I think there's actually an online survey as well, which I can get the link for, that gives you that opportunity to sort of say, you know, about those services.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dan.
I just don't get it with this respite thing, because I had an experience last year wanting respite, which were right up to the last, and basically with regard to residential in the private sector, obviously the days when county used to own the equivalent of residential, they ran with 2 short-term care beds for respite. Clearly private establishments can't do that. And as I use an example and stand up anywhere and say it, if they've got me who wants a week at £1,000, or they've got you who wants to go in for 52 weeks at £1,000, and there's one room, who's going to get the room?
Well, and this is the thing, we need to ensure that there is equity across both learning disabilities and older people services, and that's something that still seems to be an issue, where you know, older people and carers of older people don't feel as though that there's an equity in terms of support available. And
Absolutely.
yeah, no, and yeah, and we hold, you know, we know that, and that's something that we want to look at and ensure there's more equity across the system. I believe that there is some issues around getting short breaks or short-term care in residential care homes, because and that's one of the things we don't have currently is a separate short breaks contract. It is part of the wider residential care contract, yet there's no there is a expectation, but there's no real requirement for them to do sort of that short-term care. You know, a lot of care homes seem to want to provide long-term services. So that is something that, again, we've identified, and that is something that we need to address with the market. And actually, what do we need to do to enable us to get that provision across the county? You know, if if people are struggling, like, well, I can't have a break because that particular or all the care homes in my area won't do short breaks. They won't do short-term care, you know. So that is something that we need to tackle through our market management team. Say, this is a real issue, and carers are saying to us, we can't get those short-term services. So yeah, it's something that we're working on, Diane. And I'm sorry that you've struggled last year with being able to find somewhere.
Right. Well, it's good to know that you know, you are aware of it, Dan.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
It's
yeah.
But it's nothing new, Dan. This should have been dealt with years ago.
It is. Yeah, it is frustrating, and obviously COVID's had an impact on providers and services as well. But yeah, there's still that still needs to be developed and sorted out. So it is work in progress, Dan, and I'm sorry that it's taking a bit of time to sort it.
Okay, look, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for that. I'm going to hand over to James to draw us to a close. But just to reiterate, we need to hear from you. So we need to hear what you're saying, what you want us to talk about, and James will tell you how you can do that. Go on, James.
Thanks, Helen. Yeah, just want to say thank you, everybody. Thank you, both the speakers and everybody that's come along today. Just to reiterate what Helen said, really, anybody that's not joined the Carer Space mailing list yet, I've just popped the web address and our email address in the chat. And if you visit that website, that's where you'll be able to sign up for the mailing list, and where the recording of this session and all the previous sessions that have happened are hosted. Like we were saying, if you have any questions that you think of after the session that you'd like to get answers to, you're welcome to send those straight through to us at Carer Space, and then we can get in touch with the most appropriate person and get an answer back to you. And equally, yeah, any issues that you have in your caring role or structural issues that you think are more of a problem around the county, you're more than welcome to just email that address with your thoughts. And if you think there's a particular topic that it would be good to have a session focused on, you're more than welcome to make those sort of suggestions as well. So yeah, please make use of those resources. And the recording of this should be up in the next few days, and we'll notify the mailing list when it's available.
That's great. So all that's left to say is thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. As James said, thank you to the speakers. Thank you to Adrian for helping us to keep the meeting running through as well. And we hope to see you again, and we look forward to hearing from you all. So thank you, everybody.
Helen.
No.